everybody, and welcome to Gen 224 Marriage Podcast. I'm Sue Pruitt.
Yeah, I'm Larry Pruitt.
I'll let you introduce yourself tonight.
That was a little bit different than normal.
That's right. And we are here for episode 21.
Episode 21, and
we keep marching forward.
The title of this one is Laundromat and Leftovers.
Ooh.
So that's a little bit intriguing. Huh?
I hope it's intriguing enough to get people to hit that play button.
Yes.
And listen.
And so it came from something that happened, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, something like that?
I think it's longer than that, but anyway, It was cool.
So it was two different events that happened. And the first was someone approached me, and we were just having a conversation.
It was an old friend.
And he, not that he's old.
No, he's very young.
In case he's listening. But he just said, hey, do you still have your Sunday night date nights? And I kind of like looked at him for a minute, and I was just like, oh no, we actually don't. But I just got flooded with these memories and such from a time when we did have Sunday night date nights.
Now, wait a minute. We called it our Sunday night hot date.
We did. Yes. And so kind of the backstory to that then is that we were teaching a marriage class in Sunday school at our church. And so we were, obviously we taught that for 4 months or something like that. So we taught on a lot of topics, but we tried to get really practical with things. It was obviously biblically based and very foundational. The Bible's very foundational to everything that we do in our marriage. But then we gave a lot of practical ways of applying that. And so one of the things we talked about was our Sunday night. We called it a hot date. Probably to, get more attention, make people pay attention more. And so you want to just kind of talk a little bit about what we did on those dates?
Oh, yeah. So we did these when our children were young.
Right.
And they were too young for us to leave them at home by themselves. And we had 5 children, and it was kind of rare to find a babysitter that was willing to take on 5 children. And plus it was a little pricey to find a babysitter who would take on 5 children. So, money was a little tight, schedules were tight. And so what we did was we decided that our weekly date was going to be after church on Sunday night. And so we would come home from church, and I would get the kids ready and put them to bed. That was about the only night in the week that I did that, because Larry did. We talked before about how you took those responsibilities other nights, but I did that. And then Larry would get the food. He would either cook something or he would go out and get some food to bring in. And then we would sit down and have a really nice meal after the kids were in bed and just enjoy each other's company.
And again, money was super tight. So a lot of times we'd go out and I'd go out and get something most of the time, I would say, versus, I don't know, I may have warmed up something or whatever, but most of them I'd run out and get like a sub sandwich. I mean, and we'd split it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so it was very cost effective. It was just perfect for what we needed at the time. We didn't need any big complicated meal. It was probably 9 o'clock at night, at least.
Yeah, it was between 8 and 9 o'clock at night that we were eating our supper on Sunday night. So
it was a late night for us, but it became like a very precious and special time for us because we prioritized our relationship. The kids knew we were doing this and everything. And of course they would, how kids do this. They get out of bed and they're coming down like, what's going on? We're still sitting here eating a sandwich,
Yeah, right.
But I think the kids liked that and they saw that we were spending that time together. That's important.
Yep.
That the kids know that they're not the center of the universe.
And they gain security by their parents' relationship being good.
They do. Absolutely. So we definitely did not have a child-centered home, or we worked very hard to make sure that we didn't. And that was just one example of something that, like, if we go out on a date night, that was great. We did that at times. Right. We got away for weekends. We did all kinds of things like that. But for them to see us sitting there and just the two of us sharing a meal together and talking, that was just like an extra benefit.
It really was.
What we were trying to accomplish there.
Yeah. And so 10 years later, your friend sees you at an event and says, hey,
so
you guys still do that?
Man, it was probably pretty close to 10 years to the day, to be honest with you. Because it was 2015 when we were teaching that class, and it was 2025 whenever he approached me, and it was, wow, that's kind of freaky for me to think about. But anyway, that was not the main point of this. It just hit me. Sorry, got a little trailed there. But yeah, so he asked me, "Are you still doing that?" And then when I said no, because we don't really need to right now because the kids have got older. But he told me that he and his wife are still doing that. They still have young children at home, and they took our suggestion 10 years ago, and they've continued doing that. They prioritized that. And I just thought that was really fun. That was really nice to hear that.
It's such a blessing to know that we have had a good impact on someone else. Yes. That was good.
And there's all these seasons in life, and we talk about that frequently. We're at a different season in life now to where none of our kids are home right at the moment.
That's so weird.
4 of the 5 have moved out. The 5th one is out tonight, and it's just kind of like.
And this is becoming the norm. It doesn't feel quite as weird as it did 3 months ago.
So we've already, I think, talking about this.
Yeah.
Before we hit the record button, we're like, we ought to go out after this. Just because we can. So I think that we're going to do that. And so that flexibility is there in our season of life right now. But we remember very well.
Yeah.
All of those years beforehand when we didn't have that flexibility. And so hopefully this is kind of a fun little tip that others will pick up, especially if you have young children at home. A great idea to do. And it doesn't have to be Sunday night. That worked for us, but maybe some other night that you can kind of set that aside and keep it simple though.
Absolutely. And so recently we had an experience where our date night looked different than what it usually does. It happened to be a Sunday. Yeah, it was a Sunday. We didn't have church that night. And we were having a really good conversation about plans for the business, talking about our future, dreaming a little bit.
Yeah.
And during that time that we were having that conversation, I was doing laundry, and that's important. Here in a second, you're going to know why. And so I had laundry washing, and we were having this discussion. The laundry got done washing. Well, I needed to take it to the laundromat because our dryer was broken.
Sad story. It's been broken for a little while, but
yeah, so you didn't tell them that anyway.
It's been broken for a day and a half.
Yeah,
that's it.
So anyway, I needed to take the laundry to the laundromat, and we decided that you would come with me. Which you don't normally come with me when I'm there.
No, and it's kind of funny because whenever you do that. Like we've talked about getting the dryer fixed, actually it's dead. We've talked about replacing the dryer. And I know you've said it like it's just not a huge priority to you because part of it's because you like the alone time that you get in the laundromat, right?
I do. I enjoy that little bit of a break that's kind of forced on me.
So whenever we were in the middle of that conversation, she was really going to need to go. So before the clothes started, getting
before the laundromat closed,
and before the laundromat closed, and I was just very like, should I impose upon her like kind of that alone time that you like to get? So I remember just saying like, is it okay if I come along?
Yeah, we weren't done with our talk.
We weren't done,
and so you came along with me, and while the clothes were in the dryer, we continued our conversation. And got that all taken care of, got them folded and everything ready to bring them home. And then we came back home and the conversation continued.
Yes.
And we ended up heating up some leftovers for supper because we didn't want to take a lot of time to prepare food or to have to run out and get food. So we just continued that conversation, and we ended up having a really nice evening together.
Yeah. And, again, that's another thing. Whenever your kids are young, it's hard to have a complete conversation.
Yes.
And that's why sometimes whenever we would go on a date night, we would just be like, blah, 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 just trying to get caught up on some things. And now there's still interruptions though.
Yeah.
There's still interruptions all the time. And in this case, it went from a situation where like, we're having this conversation. Neither one of us are exhausted at the moment. We probably had a nap in the afternoon. And so it's like we saw the opportunity in front of us. And if I can kind of remove myself from the situation and say, like, what did we do right there? It's that we saw the importance of that. We took advantage of an opportunity that just doesn't come around even though our schedule's not quite as crazy as it used to be. Those opportunities are rare. And we did some kind of out of the box things to make it happen. But we didn't spend a ton of money. We didn't get really overly complicated. We didn't, we didn't go to some fancy restaurant or anything like that. We just did laundromat and leftovers.
Yeah. And it turned, like I said, it turned into a really lovely evening. And so, whatever your life looks like right now, we want to encourage you to think about, first of all, be creative about how you get your time together. Maybe it's a hot date while the kids are in bed and you're sitting in your kitchen or your dining room and you're eating a nice meal together, just the two of you. You get to sit through the whole meal. It was lovely. I love those meals. Because that didn't happen very often, that I got to sit through the whole meal. Or maybe it's something kind of spur of the moment, like what happened with us. Like, hey, let's go to the laundromat together. Hey, let's get some leftovers. Hey, let's continue this going. And it was, like I said, a lovely evening, but it was also just a really great conversation.
Yeah. So I think, some of the takeaways are to be flexible, to prioritize the relationship, to just recognize the importance of date times as well. There's something special about sharing a meal together.
Yeah.
There's something special about an uninterrupted conversation as best as you can make that happen, depending upon your season of life. And just kind of do whatever needs to be done without making it overly complicated and expensive and all of those challenges that we sometimes put in our own way.
And another reason that happened for us that evening is that we recognized this is a really important conversation. It was flowing really good. We were having a really good flow of ideas and everything. And we said, well, how can we keep it going? And see, we asked a good question.
That's right.
How can we keep it going?
And to the last podcast episode, if you don't get that.
Yes. And still do the things that need to be done at that moment. It was get clothes in the dryer. So
yes, for sure. And so a lot of this, I think, would be centering around the concept that we talked about, a lot of connection. All right. And there are many, many ways to do that. Date nights are one of the crucial ideas behind that. But we have those connection cards that we have put together and we give away for free.
Link in the description box.
Yes. And so, we'll just put the link down there. That'll be the easiest way to do that. And you just put in your name and email, and then we send those to you. And those are just conversation starters, really. Those are things just to get things kicked off. And maybe one of the cards works great and one of them doesn't. So just set that one to the side and go with the ones that work. But that's how to get things started. But once things are started, just be aware of that. And I'll just say to guys, you may need to turn the ball game off. Step on toes there a little bit. You got something for the ladies?
Pick your time. Pick your time. Don't pick in the last minute of the fourth quarter to say, hey, we need to go have our connection card.
Yes.
So
that's
right. Pick your time wisely.
That's right, for sure. So hopefully this has been encouraging and again, just something very practical. Asking that question, how can we make this happen? What would need to be true for us to do this on a regular basis? And just get really creative with it and just be mindful of it, prioritize it, and it'll happen.
Yeah.
And you will feel the rewards.
Absolutely. And chances are some of the people who are listening and watching are creative with how they get it done. Yes. And we would love to hear how you do it. So comment below.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of those ideas because we obviously don't have all of them by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
So please share. We love to hear that. You can, like you said, just put in the comments, probably the easiest thing. You can always email us and let us know if you want our contact information as well. So.
Absolutely. So hopefully you'll take this episode, find some inspiration, make your own hot date nights happen on a regular basis, even if it means going to the laundromat and eating some leftovers.
That's right.
And we hope that you will take what you have learned today and continue living as one flesh today,
tomorrow,
and forever.
Take care.
See ya.